Hey, so that was like a huge interruption. That was one of those like flash flooding alerts. I can only imagine that must have been what it was, and it completely startled me. I'm not even sure if I'm going to edit this and attach to the where I started in the video, because I didn't really get that far anyway, and I really don't feel like doing that editing. So just to catch you up, I started a reading. It's raining here. Thought it was rather lightly, but according to that alert that just pierced through the beginning of the reading, maybe there's something a little bit more serious on the way. I'm not sure. But in any event, hello, how are you? Because I'm almost certain I'm not going to add that beginning. I just got started here. We're already in the reading, and where I left off is actually quite interesting as to how I got interrupted. So we started with the Three of Cups, which is some collaborative effort, celebration, reunion of sorts, perhaps, maybe three's company type of situation, or third party situation, also known as. And where I was is this King of Swords, Page of Swords, and Ace of Cups. And what I was feeling is that this Page of Cups is either a middleman carrying some information, some intel, perhaps even a private investigator, maybe not officially so, but what I was seeing is that this middleman in the Page of Swords is like bringing the tea back to this King of Swords. He's reporting back on something. The other flip side is that if it's not actually a separate person, as my intuition is telling me, that it's just secretly this King of Swords who's presenting this this appearance as if he's unbothered, he has it all together, he's just sitting on a throne minding his business, being upright, honorable, and just, is actually the one that's doing the stalking and the lurking, and by way of the Page of Swords. So in one face he's looking like he could care less, but in another face he actually couldn't care less. Like, he couldn't care less, if that makes any sense. Like, is that the way? I guess I should say he could care less because he's doing too much by way of whatever he's investigating or being nosy, quite honestly, about. And then we got over here. I hadn't gotten here yet, so that's how welcome. You didn't miss a thing. But that's where the alarm went off, which to me, I was kind of in between, like, deciding whether or not I was feeling that it was one person or if it was him. Wow. I'm gonna go ahead and say it's probably the one person. Ooh, this is crazy. I hope my son might pop in here because he might get nervous. But so anyway, I'm gonna keep it going because this is interesting. So we got the Eight of Swords here, the Five of Wands, and the Nine of Cups, right? So over here, there's someone. Honestly, I feel like this is what he's trying to keep a bird's eye view on in some way, shape, or form. This energy here with the Eight of Swords, like there's someone that he has an invested interest as to how she moves. I'll say it like that. Whether she's still stuck and stagnant in this spiritual prison, blocked, bound, blinded, or whether she has released herself or been released from it in some way, shape, or form. And here's this competition card with the Five of Wands. Yeah. And this is him over here, this King of Swords. The competition is between the two. So this is wow, this is crazy. So basically, he's keeping his eye on the competition. Wow, you hear all these sirens? I hope you can't even hear me. This is crazy. He's keeping his eye on the competition as it pertains to her. Competition that she may not even know is even vying for her attention, connection, anything, collaboration, interest, nothing. I don't know what this competition is about or for, or holistically motivated by, but it's in some correlation with this energy here, this feminine who's blocked and bound and, you know, probably just unaware in some way, shape, or form. And here he is peeking on the sidelines because ultimately he is wanting to procure this cup of love. Like, see this separation here? This is interesting to me. This is how the cards pulled. It was these three together and then these three together, since you didn't see the beginning. This separation here is what he is focused on and obsessive about. God forbid this gap closes and she gets to be connected with this Ace of Cups, this overflowing love and spiritual fulfillment of divine ordinance, because for whatever reason he wants to hold that cup of fulfillment from her so that he can continue to be fulfilled from her energy, her stagnancy. That's what the competition is over, in which he's on the outside looking, more or less on the fringes of the competition, because he pretty much feels like, there is no competition. He doesn't compete where he doesn't compare, but he knows that there's energies here that ultimately are trying to one up one another, or even the potential of such, whether it's connected to him or not. He's still somehow keeping an eye on the potential for her to be connected anywhere outside of him, honestly, or especially from a total connectivity to her spiritual self and fulfillment, so that there can continue to be this lording of sorts over her vitality. There's something that he gains. Lately with this Nine of Cups, I've been seeing it in lower vibrations, which in which this is to me. I've been seeing the Nine of Cups as someone that is very greedy and overindulgent, that's given that's relented to his obsessions and addictions and, behaviors that are not fulfilling, that are not supporting his highest frequency of vitality. So therefore, it compels certain energies and actions that are not high vibrational, i.e. being obsessive over the possession of things outside of yourself, not limited to materials. In this case, we're talking about actual energy, vitality. The Three of Cups is here. It's like he wants her energy to be a part of this collection, or wanted, that was the goal, to be a part of this he's like a collector of souls, that's ultimately what I hear. But it's in the most practical sense, it's like just always being able to finesse feminine energy for whatever your ulterior motives are, or whatever gratification it offers for you. It could just be a power trip. It could be manifestation purposes, which is given me here with the Ace of Cups. There's an acknowledgement of the sanctity of feminine energy here with the Three of Cups, of how of the potential that it has to give life, not just in the practical, actual sense, but even in the creative sense. The incitement it makes on competition. These are like masculine energies competing over to have the most powerful force, the most powerful wand, ultimately. And this competition, again, on account of possessing feminine energy and keeping it captivated in the sense that it is viable for whatever is being manifested from this masculine perspective, but not viable enough for her own vitality, for her own evolvement and progression. You know, it's like literally being a miser, coveting spiritual essence for self and hoarding it, but not still keeping this wedge, this space in between that connection of vitality, even from within the source that it belongs to, in a sense, like keeping a female emotionally imbalanced, per se. That's a practical way to say it, or psychologically distorted is an expression for this card, the Nine of Swords. Like just keeping an imbalance going in a feminine energy so that she can't be in the most vital position for manifestation in her own regard, where she's in control of her creativity and what she brings in. It's like if you have a female or a feminine, or anyone for that matter, that is completely in control of her manifestation power, she can't be controlled otherwise. She can't be possessed otherwise. You can't influence that power to do what you want it to do if there is no accordance there, you know, if there's no agreement. So if you can keep there being an imbalance where perhaps she doesn't even know how her energy is being possessed, misused, abused, misaligned, misinvested, you know, outside of her agreement, you can ultimately continue to siphon it and, as I said, hoard it for self or for whatever, you know, purpose or gratification you have in mind. This can be universal. This can also be this could be intimate. It could be general. It could be a societal impression here that we're talking about, especially with the masculine and feminine energy. Some of the things that we're seeing, systems being dismantled before our eyes as we speak and rebalanced, you know, in that regard. And it could be in a very particular relationship, one that you're in, one that, you know, of potential, given we're in retrograde in a lot of ways and there are opportunities and offers coming to the table. It's something to consider, that everyone that is extending their hand to you as some knight in shining armor or some high vibrational or high value choice of partnership or prospect of partnership is not necessarily doing so for pure means. You know, it could be for for the for means of possession, is what I'm trying to say. That they recognize the value of your essence and see the value that it can ultimately afford them in one way, shape, or form, and want to profit off of it, or want to, what's the right word I'm looking for? Want to ultimately benefit from it. And if nothing else, you know, you got all ranges of the spectrum here, because he's all the way over here in one sense, but it could also be so much so that if he can't have you, he doesn't want anybody else to. So like I said before, this could be a middleman of bringing the tea, like what's going on over there? What's she doing? Who's she with? Is she dating? Is she, you know, has she moved on? Is she doing something and it's raining harder? Like every time I start talking about this energy, something drastic happens. It's probably about to be thunder because I just saw lightning. Okay, it wasn't that bad. But yeah, there's something here that's an emergency issue is what I'm feeling. And here we go. And emergency in the sense that this character is he's just, like I said, he's wearing two faces, you know, at best, if not actually having somebody else do the dirty work. But it's even worse. I don't know which one is worse, to be honest, because it could be that he's wearing two faces, or he's so distorted in his own psychology right now that he's actually the one stalking and lurking, like that obsessed with someone moving on outside of him, that he can't stop peeking his nose in and impose an energy where he has no jurisdiction. Perhaps where he never did, but where he certainly does not now, So let's see what else we got. And I was having a really hard time talking. It's like the energy doesn't want me to speak. Justice. Yeah, but the Justice card is here. And the Death card, wow, look at this. Let's say maybe keep these together. And one more on the side if I can get it. Something's being exposed, and there's an end to it. This, yeah, and I'm gonna take that. And there's an end to this situation here. Let's see. So we got the Justice card, which is that balance and, cause and effect. And again, like some rectification for some things that were out of alignment in one way, shape, or form. And here she is blocked and bound again, but with the Two of Swords, she's not bound actually, she's armed and blinded, but still there's a blockage here in a sense where there's some crossroads experience. I don't always see the Two of Swords as a helpless, vulnerable energy, because like I like to say, she got two swords in her hand. So if she get the swinging, somebody's going to get cut one way or another, even if she might look vulnerable. But there's still something that is unseen about this situation here. Perhaps her being released from this stronghold, whatever it may be, by way of justice and by spirit bringing an end to this. This is like, to me, this is in connection to this energy here, where there was just an over use of power, and also by way of the intention or motivation of lust. That's what I'm getting here with this Ace of Wands and the Death card and Justice leading it. That's being exposed. Perhaps this way in which this energy was working to keep this feminine bound and blocked, and inciting, investing energy into her obstruction, a progression in some way, shape, or form, investing energy into whatever this competition is, because he's connected to this competition too. It's just a matter that he sees himself as the ahead of the competition. That's the difference between why he's on the outside as the Nine of Cups. There's some way that he feels he has more of an advantage over those that may also be vying for her energy or for her. He just thinks he's the best man, like simply put, he feels like I'm better than all of them. Ultimately, ain't nobody better than me. When, boy, I don't know, I beg to differ, at least at this point, because all of this energy invested is just diabolical, quite honestly. It's definitely wasted, it's not well spent to want to influence and impact somebody's pure progression so much that you would want to keep them from their most spiritual evolution or elevation, is what is represented here in the Ace of Cups. Like, you don't want this person to be completely happy and fulfilled outside of you, ultimately, because you have something to gain from her energy being isolated. It's very narcissistic, quite honestly. So it's probably a whole cast of narcissisms that are ultimately having a DICK measuring contest about who can either have the best feminine energy in their notch on their belt, or the most something. There's some this energy here with the Eight of Swords doesn't even have to be singular. It could, as it isn't even here with the Three of Cups, it could be about the competition over feminine energy in general. You know, I'm saying he and she, but it doesn't necessarily have to be limited to one woman, especially leading with the Three of Cups. You know, there is this, you know, I'm almost seeing them in like a glass case right now. You know, that's what I'm seeing. Those are the cups that he's hoarding. It's like, how many women can you finesse for your own creative advancement or powerful advancement? You know, there's some competitive energy here, whether it be it's all diabolical, but on the inside of it all, it may be competitive in the sense of maybe even a group of friends or some secret society of sorts, or collaboration of creatives, and they have, you know, they work in these dark ways of, like I said, siphoning feminine energy or manipulating feminine force for their own creative purposes or advancement in some way, shape, or form. And they come together in a dark way, meaning it's unseen, which gives me this energy here where it's like two-faced. In one regard, they're kings, or he's presenting himself as a king, but behind the scenes they're creeps. Like, honestly, you know, because they know the value of feminine energy, but they do their absolute worst in terms of using and abusing it for their own advancement and advantages. Worst kind of creeps. So that's the energy I'm seeing here, and it definitely pans out here with the Ace of Wands. Like I said, this is like a misuse of power and abuse of power. Again, causing endings in people's lives, you know, bringing people, keeping feminines halted by their own emotional instability and perhaps psychological disruptions, because it is no secret that we can be disturbed quite easily by way of our emotions. You taint that cup and it can taint everything in a feminine's life, you know? So if you can keep her in balance, but yet present yourself as some knight in shining armor, or even better yet, some king, you know, some valiant king, supposed to be one of the most honest kings in the deck, truthful, upright, integral, is the King of Swords. But behind the scenes, like I said, you just looking for the next way to take a swing at one of these females to ultimately siphon all of that goodness, all of her juices, all her vibrational energy and life force. Like, every time you break her heart, that's another notch on your belt. That's this energy here. It's getting more and more icky as I keep going, which is why it was like it was holding the adverse energy was trying to hold my throat chakra. Like, I couldn't get words out. It was really like me fighting, and it's no wonder that this storm is raging, outpour of feminine energy, of spirit, and it was an emergency that literally stopped my reading in the beginning. Like, right when I was getting into this vibration here, it cut it off and came through with the alert and all this crackling thunder and lightning. It's like, this is the justice, though, because she's protected. You know, although the feminines that have been victim or vulnerable to these diabolical tactics or whatever this game is that these individuals are playing, they've been protected, and there's been put a halt to, and also an exposure to this. I don't even know what to call this. You know, I'm saying this game because of this competition here. It feels like internally it was like a game. It was like I said, some like diabolical DICK measuring contest, you know, and it wasn't even necessarily about who can sexualize women, you know, who could attack women most physically by way of sex. It was more so emotional, you know, but the energy of that phallic is what they were using in an energetic sense to be almost as a weapon, like sex as a weapon. But again, it didn't have to be actual sex, just the sexuality of a woman. As I said, tainting that cup, tainting her emotional vitality, her loving nature, her trust in herself, you know, making you almost feel distrustful of yourself because you've trusted the wrong person. And then, like narcissistic energies do, making you gaslighting you, making you feel like you're the crazy one, or you must be misreading the situation, so you don't even feel like you can completely, you know, trust yourself, which puts you in this Two of Swords vibration here, where you don't trust anyone else to come near you because you're not sure if you're safe with the decisions that you're making. Like, it's just all effed up. But here is the bottom line right here. I'm gonna pull a couple more before I roll out, but this is the bottom line here, that time's up for that. It's like, you hear this alarm? The spirit is not happy about that. The misuse and abuse of feminine energy, dare I say unjustifiably, as if it could ever be justified, is a capital offense now. Whereas once upon a time, people have been getting away with it and have been actually making quite, you know, becoming quite wealthy from the advantages of manipulating feminine energy and monopolizing on that force, using it for self, but not adding any value to it, like literally just siphoning the energy for their own purposes and gratification. And for some, like I said, it might not even been for any creative purpose, but just to say that you can, you know, again, DICK, measuring contests, who can finesse the best, you know. Done. Justice card here. People are either going to transition on account of, I'm literally just going to call this how I see it. The justice for those that have been misusing their wands is either going to be disease or demise. That's the justice here. And it's not going to affect those that were the targeted interests, i.e. the women that have been targeted. Those that have been in alignment with that, which perhaps some women have been in alignment with this. I can't ignore that we led with the Three of Cups, but I feel like the more I get into it, these are like the sitting ducks that have been finessed. They just trying to have a good time, celebrate their womanhood, live their lives like it's golden. And you got these energies like foxes and hounds on the sidelines, just looking for a way to break up that party and have their own. Like, that's the energy that I'm getting here. Kings and creeps. And it's starting to piss me off, quite honestly. It really is, because it's like, how dare you? How dare you? So anyway, protected, blocked, because now this, and it's like this energy may seem to be still, her eyes may be still covered, but she's armed. You know, her hands are released, which is a good sign, and she's armed, meaning she's in protective mode, she's in defense mode. So even the things that she can't see coming or can't even see that have passed don't really matter, because the spirit is covering all. Number one is being stopped in its tracks right here anyway, so any further advancements won't be able to pass this line of demarcation, is what I hear. And anything that does is going to be exposed before it even gets to her, and is going to be exposed for what it was in the first place. So either way you look at it, exposure is happening, and it's a dead stop, a dead halt. So, you know, it's not even worth even going any further, honestly, but I am going to pull a couple of cards because, yeah, I just am. That's too many. A few more. Exactly. Yep. More justice. That you have to walk away no matter how much you invested in this process, in this game. Not only are they going to have to walk away, but everybody that participated is going to be left out in the cold. In despair and poverty, everything that was made on account of this, this madness is lost. Or it just doesn't even matter anymore because that's way too many. Because it's not even worth the investment that was made. Like the energy that was invested here, it might have been fun while it lasted, but what it's yielded in terms of the headache and the heartbreak look at this. Literally, the headache is defeated. It's like, and what's in the middle? And then I'm over it. I'm so over it. Is the World card, because no matter how many ways that there was a determination for there to be some, to be a destructive force, even when not only was the handwriting on the wall that it wasn't viable and universally viable anymore, and it stopped raining since, by the way, just so you know. Not only was that cycle over, that whatever was acquired or obtained or whatever success was had on account of this experience that was created here, it was showing itself to be unfavorable and unproductive and not prosperous. It was showing itself to be that, but people weren't taking the hint. There was still some, like I said, even from this point, he was still unlawfully trying to make sure, he's at a distance from this energy here, so perhaps he didn't have as much of a hands-on advantage as he used to, really being able to possess that feminine energy the way that he used to be able to really make an impact and an impression, especially as she began to become more aware of her position and power and begin to protect herself. There was less of a hold, a stronghold there, but it didn't stop him from still imposing himself in her business and in her energy, where he had no jurisdiction. I can't say it enough. Where he had no right to do so. As if the damage wasn't already done, he still felt like, oh no, it's no way you're going to move on and enjoy your life, even after all you got on account of it. You know what I mean? You had your fun. Now she can't move on. That's the narcissistic vibe right there. It's like, God forbid they see you actually moving on and living your life. That's when they want to swoop in and hover and make sure that they still have some cord or some claw attached to you to, for their own self-gratification, their own ego trip, ultimately. Having no real claim to your energy at this point. They don't really want you. They're not really interested in being with you and doing well by you. It's just a matter of wanting to make sure that you're not doing well by yourself. Like craziness. And still, and the competition went from it being, a group thing to it probably simmering down to being just an individual competition with self. Like when that got dismantled, it still was like this pride and ego that was holding them by the balls, like, but nah, she ain't moving on, like that God complex kicked in. Come on, lady, and it's gospel music, but get on somewhere now. The whole neighborhood don't need to hear you and your music. Gosh, the hood, I tell you, pardon me. So he couldn't release that grip, that control, the the possession possessed him, ultimately, is what it came down to. Where he had ample opportunities to fall back, to release the grip, to release the obsession and the possession. Spirit was given all the signs and signals, even in some drastic ways here, some very drastic signs and signals that enough was enough, but the pressing on continued, and now it was to the point where there is no choice but to turn away. But now when he turns away, he's turning away to nothing. Perhaps if he had cut his losses a long time ago, he wouldn't actually be experiencing this Five of Pentacles losses in real time, at least not to this magnitude. But it's the persistence and the insistence on this madness that ultimately has called for, the universe to have to step in a major way and put all things to a screeching halt with this death card, and then to shed a light on it so that it can never be revisited again. Because the world is turning, evolution is here, and it's not sustainable for people to be obsessive and possessive over anything beyond themselves anymore. That leads to a dead end, literally, with the death card. There's no value in it. There's nothing productive about it. You don't manifest anything prosperous from it. It just continues on this toxic cycle of limitation and scarcity and fear, obsession, addiction, all the most low vibrational diabolical energies you could imagine is what it persists and continues to produce. And it's just no room for that anymore. The earth is looking to regenerate in a way that is more sustainable for itself and its inhabitants. So anyone that insists on continuing in the old way of that old spectrum is ultimately going to, as I said, either be, face disease or demise. You want to make yourself sick, or you're literally going to be expired, transitioned, having no value here in this earth anymore. So, and this is the energy here where it ultimately is self-defeated, where, like I said, you can't play the same old games anymore. She's not as blocked and bound as she once was, and unaware ultimately, because a lot of us as feminine energies were not even aware of the ways that we were allowing our energies to be mismanaged and misused and abused. We didn't know. A lot of what we've been conditioned to do has just become a way of life, to be treated a certain way in relationships, to look at ourselves in a certain low vibrational way, to limit our potential to certain ceilings and containments. That's the conditioning of the world as it's been. And I can't even say it's the total fault of masculine energy or feminine energy. It's just been that diabolical spirit of imbalance, the opposite of justice that's been running rampant in the earth, because there's value in it for lower vibrational energies to breed from and to feed on. But that's not the value of the highest spirit of all, the one that wants, that ultimately speaks to the ideal that there's enough for everyone, that we're all more than enough, that our possibilities are unlimited, that we can have all that we put our minds and our hearts to. That energy is what is evolving at a rapid rate, although it's definitely it's accelerating now for us as more and more people, it's like starting to catch fire, like more and more people are waking up, so then that person brushes up against the next, and so on and so forth. But there's still a large majority, unfortunately, or so it seems anyway, that want to hold on to that old way, because of that obsession with control and power over one another. that for the purposes of possessing the energy outside of them, being greedy, not that you don't have energy yourself, but possessing the energy outside of you, you almost feel like you could do more with it and yours than you could just do on your own. Which we could all do more with one another collectively than we can do on our own, but not in a diabolical sense. Not in a way where, not as a casualty of one over the other and as a detriment to one over the other. And that's the energy that's been persistent for the feminine, that she's been the casualty for others' creativity, for too long, for far too long. And it's just time's up for that. So we got the 5 of Swords here. Again, I keep saying this, I keep getting off this topic, but 5-5, that's big change coming. Matter of fact, 5-5-5, hell yeah, 5-5-5. Big changes on the horizon. And like I said, it's happening rapidly. And anybody that's not in alignment with it, what's the only thing missing? The 5, oh no, because the 5 of Wands is here too. So that's for all the 5s on the board. Every suit implies that there's some change already underway, that if you're not in alignment with it, you're going to pretty much be washed away. Just as in these 5 of Cups, where he's literally depressed because the past, and what's he looking back at here? That 3 of Cups, as in this energy here, what he no longer is able to possess, what he can't have for himself anymore, what no longer is in, his clutch or in his grip. As long as he continues to be depressed about what he can no longer control, he will continue to be self-defeated and self-sabotage. And I'm saying he and she, but I'm talking about universally, generally, collectively, however it applies, however it resonates as a masculine or feminine on either side. You could be a masculine that's been mismanaged and abused, and misused and abused. It doesn't have to be limited to a man or a woman, but certainly the idea is that spirit that's looking to be possessive and diabolical and destructive is what is ultimately, first of all, meeting its own justice as the world is turning in a different way now and evolving in a different space. And it's also not going to be able to persist unless there's transformation that occurs. And that's also what the Death card is here in the middle. If you're not willing to transform those tactics of power and creativity as they once were, ultimately those obsessions of lust, that have been high on the Richter scale, late as up until now, even still to this day, then you're ultimately going to find yourself getting the short end of the stick in terms of what the world has to offer by way of life experience. This is the life experience that you are going to have. Someone that is always depressed, never having enough, down in the dumps, always self-sabotaging or actually being defeated by life itself in some way, shape, or form, especially having refused to change or shift perspective. With the sword energy here, that's literally having to shift, a change in mind, a change in your spirit, your emotional nature, how you look at love, how you look at intimacy, compassion, empathy, sympathy, all those things. Literally being healed is what the 5 energies are giving me. Stop competing unnecessarily. There's no need to compare phallics, size doesn't really matter. It really quite literally is about what you do with it. And even in the most literal sense and in the most, theoretical sense, creative sense as to what you do with the power that you have. You could have a small gift or a small talent and move mountains with it and impact millions with the right attitude and motivation. You don't need anything else outside of yourself, literally. And I mean that in the most, I'm trying to say literal way and figurative, in the most actual or figurative way. In a sensationalized way, men fueling themselves off of the notches on their belt, or how they're, masking their call for transformation by way of their emotional and psychological voids, by soothing through overindulgence in one way, shape, or another, in people, places, or things. Like masculine and feminine, of course, for that matter, but it's been very clear the disparity here, you know, and the difference of the energies that I'm speaking of. So yeah, change 555, and there will be a drastic change in material gain and stability if these changes are not surrendered to. If they're not made, you won't be able to really sustain yourself, secure a livelihood that is functional, let alone something, you know, enjoyable and sensational. It's like you would want to make the change. You would want to, if you can't see the value in the change as a masculine energy that's still stuck in some old toxic cycle, using old toxic tactics, you know, to create life, you would want to call in some perspective of possibility for something different, because otherwise it's just going to be to your own demise. Yeah, exactly. Confusion and delusion is the 7 of Cups here. And what's on the top? Oh my gosh. And the Tower, which is everything that I just said. I don't really have to even go too deep, but it's like it all falls down. First of all, it already is all falling down for anything that's not operating on or pursuing a higher octave of activation, you know, to be working in any other way that is beyond obsession and possession. It's going to be cut down to size. The foundation will be wiped, swept clean, so that you can have the opportunity potentially to build again, but it has to be chosen. It's not going to be done for you at all. You know, like I think the grace alone is if you have participated in some of these diabolical things and you still have legs to stand on, breath in your body, you know, eyes to see, ears to hear, you know, to even perceive a fresh possibility. That's the grace alone. So if you have that, the best thing to do, the wisest thing to do, is to call in some understanding beyond this confused state, this illusion and delusion of self, to call in some understanding, to be enlightened as to how you can be transformed and transpose the energy that caused you to live in this vibration in the first place. Otherwise, this is just giving me like eternal hell and damnation. That's what this is giving me, to continue live in a constant state of confusion and emotional instability, unclarity, and so much so that everything that you do fails, because you can't manifest anything from this state where you're just like completely distrusting of yourself. You don't know what to choose, you don't know who to trust, you don't know where to go, what to do, what cup to drink from, what not to. You keep drinking poison over and over again because that's what you've been used to, drinking everybody else's cup, you know, filling up on other people's energy. You can't do that anymore. So if you are still trying to do that, you're ultimately damning yourself to destruction. Like, I don't know. So yeah, that's that. So be careful out there, ladies and gentlemen too, you know, that these are the energies that are on the prowl right now. Those alarms were not going off for no reason, that some people are wearing, still trying to keep a heavy mask and still, you know, trying to present appearances that are fraudulent. You know, they're facades of honor and truth and justice. You may not be knowing everything that's been going on behind the scenes, especially if we're talking about somebody coming back that you haven't seen in a while. If you can't